Hey, all you Splinterheads, welcome back. Bronze Dragon here, saying thanks for stopping by. I appreciate your time. I'm coming at you with a Monday evening post town hall thoughts. It's not like a really in-depth examination, but I had a few thoughts on what was discussed today. Overall, it was kind of light in news. I got the overall impression that everybody on the team is pretty much tired. You know, maybe that's my take on it, but even the chief FOMO officer was kind of a little bit drawn back and not expressing, his usual zest and zeal in creating FOMO. But I can see where they've been working long hours. So with that said, I don't think any of us who've been following the process were surprised when they pretty much announced that, they're working with some major issues, some bugs that they're working out, and Land 1.5 does not look like it's going to make it inside the August timeframe. So we can just cross our fingers and hope the issues get resolved in a timely manner. But with that said, they did have some nice new news they dropped on us. So I'm going to go over that. And I've also got some news about Splinterforge, something big in Splinterforge happening tomorrow. So if that sounds interesting, go ahead and stick with me. So please leave a like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. I do appreciate it. And this weekend, I will be hosting my 25th Saturday morning stand-up, and we're going to be doing some card pack giveaways. So please stop by. I hosted at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. It usually goes for an hour. This one might go a little bit longer. Who knows? But I do appreciate everybody subscribing and pitching in with ideas and showing up. And the more the merrier. The more people we've got, the better the discussion is. And it's usually pretty solid. So please drop by if you like. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I think the most interesting thing that came out of today's town hall was the announcement of the new airdrop card for Rift Watchers, which is kind of set for about September 7th to drop. It's CREC. I'll leave the link to the Peak D article if you want to check out the stats. Looks like it's going to be a nice big tank, and it looks like it's going to fit into a lot of different situations, especially reverse speed. But even without reverse speed, it's got a lot of nice tanking properties to it. So I can see a lot of people wanting to add this to their deck. This comes with the general announcement, or, everybody's been talking about it, about how Rift Watchers has been burned. We're at about 10% of Rift Watchers being burned so far. And, this next airdrop is going to happen about September 7th. So that's the card. They did announce it, so looks good. I know I'll probably want to pick up one. So with that said, I generally go at the aspect of from the point of view of just buying singles. But when this first drops, they're going to be pretty expensive. So as we've been talking about over the last couple weeks, with these card packs being burnt at such a rapid rate, this whole set is on track to be one of the smallest circulating sets there is. I don't know the numbers compared to Alpha, but I know compared to the rest of them, it's going to be a very small set. And with that said, that means exponentially there's going to be very few CRECs out there. Obviously, if you want to go in and buy the packs and get the guaranteed airdrop, that's one way to go about it. Or buying packs after the drop and hoping to get one of them. Either way, looks like a nice card. Probably will be expensive when it drops, though. Okay, that's the most interesting thing, I think, and I will leave the link. He also put up a cool, Nate dropped a cool piece of artwork, the CREC, if you want to use that as your desktop. So, okay, with that said, the other article that they dropped was called Land Phase 1.5 Pre-Flight Checklist. Okay. The greatest, this is almost like, I started to listen to him talk about that. I'm like, this is what I've been doing videos on for months now, okay? So I'm not going to read through this all. I'm going to leave the link in the show notes, so if you want to go check it out and read through it, it's definitely a pretty good list. But if you've been watching my videos, it'll probably just be a reiteration of what I've been saying. But let's go through this. There are a couple things that I want to pick out and emphasize that I may have not, well, whenever I was doing the prior videos, there weren't a whole lot of information known on these specific points. So section 1, understanding dark energy and the requirements. Okay, so we all know that you're going to need dark energy crystals to stake on your land to be able to make the monsters work, or by the storyline to help the power core work, right? So 10,000 DEC for a max level BCX card times 5. So you're looking at 50,000 per land plot, less if you're not using maxed out cards. And we all know if you don't know where that is, you can go to the white paper and they have the exact formula and you can work it out. The interesting part is they go into the details about dark energy crystals, that you manage your dark energy by region. Okay. So you can make plot adjustments. Remember, anytime you do a plot adjustment, that's going to trigger a harvest event. So you need to take this into account whenever you start making changes on land. So when you go in, set it up, think about it. Going into 1.5, you're going to be able to harvest once per day or a minimum of once every 7 days. Once it hits that 7th day, it's just going to stop accruing until you actually harvest. But there are more things to think about whenever you trigger that harvest. So I'm just saying that think about things before you just go and change them. Otherwise, you might be triggering a harvest when you didn't mean to. Okay. The other thing here that I want to point out is you can unstake DEC and it will be immediately available that you can do other things with. So, okay, section 2, know your power sources. They talk about the power cores. We've talked about this before. One of the interesting parts that they talk about here, and this is under the more information heading, is the building in the box power core. So if you purchased building in the box on your land plots, or you bought a land plot with it up to this point, you will have a power core. Now, once 1.5 hits and we start working the land, those power cores will become associated with the person who triggered them, on their land. So going forward, after 1.5 becomes live, I have a plot of land, I start working it, I trigger that power core becomes soul bound to me. So in the future, I can go ahead and buy, sell, trade that plot of land, and it'll have on it what it has on it. But the power core stays with me because it's soul bound. So the interesting part here is basically if you're going to buy a plot of land with building in the box on it, you want to do it before 1.5 hits. That's the takeaway there. Okay. The last point on that section is that the free building for the building in the box does not take effect until 2.0 or later. So that's not like a matter here. It's just really the power core they're talking about. So something to consider, just more information. Okay, next topic, Rooney Core. If you've got a Rooney, you probably know the information about this. So I'll leave it at that. A single Rooney may be staked on a plot, and you can add an additional power source, as the Rooney also functions as a worker. 4 more worker slots give a total of 5. Also, you don't have to stake DEC on that plot of land. So ensure you own enough cards. We've talked about this a number of times, and they've continually talked about it, and we've all seen the effect on the marketplace as far as card selling and buying lately, or at least within the last month or two. Cards have went up pretty decently. The next point I want to bring out is about card and item locking. You've got to know your time periods here. Going in, it's going to behoove you to know the time periods you're working with, especially if you have a lot of different land plots and you're going to be trying to switch cards around once in a while, trying to get the highest efficiency out of your land plots. The first thing is whenever you stake on land, the card becomes automatically locked. And by default, it takes 3 days for them to unlock after you unstake them, okay? And you can't really do anything with them during those 3 days. And the interesting part is that they brought out that if for some reason you do want it to lock it for greater than 3 days, you can for up to 30 days for security standpoint. More expensive cards. You want them locked down, no possibility of them going anywhere. You can choose to go up to 30 days. But if you do that, you need to do that lock manually prior to staking them on the land. Otherwise, if you just stake them on the land, the game will stake it for lock it for 3 days. Okay, so cards in the process of unlocking can't be used as land workers. So you pull a card off, you're going to have to wait 3 days at least for that before you can put it on another piece of land. Currently, you can't change the time it takes to unlock a card that is already locked. Instead, you must first unlock the card and wait its entire unlocking period. Okay, that's what I just said. If you need to move locked cards to another account before working land, or if you want to change their unlock time, you should begin unlocking them as soon as possible. Cards that are unstaked from land will be on cooldown for 72 hours, is what we just said. So they're basically just, saying get ready. Get your cards in order, get them ready. For me, there's still some cards I have rented out that I'm trying to get off the market. And sometimes that's a difficult process. You want to be ready for day one. I'm sure you do if you have your land and you're prepared to get started. So various things about that. Titles don't need to be locked to assign them to a plot, but you will be automatically locked once staked. Like cards, titles can't be staked to land while in the process of unlocking, and currently totems can't be locked. So then they go on to talk about evaluating placements of cards. We've done a number of videos about that, telling you, basically use the terrain preferences and the land production boosts, totems and things to get the best out of your cards. I think we've talked about that a number of times. So, and then evaluate the production types and hone your overall strategy. Okay, I think if you've got plots, you've looked at this, but it's basically saying take advantage of what the land is good at. If it's a magic land, it's good at studying, so you do the research, you get the 100%. Not saying you have to, but you're going to get a 100% bonus, so on and so forth with mining, SPS, and such. So the interesting part in this section that I found is that when Land 1.5 rolls out, you can send grain from the Time Vault starter package to a region, okay? And that first sending it there is free, okay? Once it's in that region, if you want to transfer it around, you're going to start paying the tax. So make sure you know and you have a plan of where you're sending your grain to minimize the amount of traveling around it has to do, because every time you send it somewhere, you're paying that tax and transportation fee, okay? And then they go on to tell you that, we all know this, but the workers produce grain at the rate of 0.02 production per hour, and then they go ahead and eat about half of it. So, and you also have to think about that 10% off the top of taxes. So we've talked about this, but I figured I'd just mention again. The research, they say a little bit about that. For every 10,000 production a landowner devotes to research, they'll receive 1 research token minus the 10%. So I guess for every 10,000 production points, you get 90% of a research token. So that's probably where I'm going to be in that exact situation, because, actually on my magic lands, I have a little bit over 10,000 production points, but right around there. So I'll be doing good to get 1 production point per period. So, and then they talk about competing for the most research in a territory and everything that will go into that. Everybody has their feelings one way or another. That's probably something that's way out in the future, and they haven't even fleshed out the ideas yet. So, I've seen people do videos for it. I've seen people do videos against it, or not really against it, but saying, hey, maybe your land's better off doing something else instead of researching and producing a token that's not really good for anything right now, and possibly for next year or two. It all depends upon what you think about that. My opinion is I'm going in with a median line approach. I'm going to do a little bit of each. So I'm going to do a little bit of research. I'm going to do a little bit of SPS mining, and I'm going to try to do enough grain harvesting to cover all that, so I don't have to buy it off of anybody or the market. That's what I'm going to attempt to. How that turns out, who knows? I think one thing's for sure, that this is all going to be fluid, and even what you do on day one could be much different than what you end up doing 2 weeks later. Everybody's going to keep an eye on the market, I feel. Some people, I doubt people are just going to set it and forget it. It's going to be very fluid. You're going to be making changes, trying to minimize the amount of money you're spending, making those changes, like, transferring grain here or there, having wait times when you're triggering a harvest and taking cards off. So you're going to try to minimize all that and make the best potential out of all the land you have. So, and then they talk about SPS. We just talked about that. And then they talk about Section 7, understanding time crystals. And we've talked about this too. So each time crystal gives you, it costs 100 DEC, which is burnt, which is good for the DEC ecosystem. It gives you 10,000 production points. The takeaway here is right up front, I think doing the numbers, it costs the same as buying grain and using your workers to clear the land, except for you don't have to wait for the time. So I think right up front, time crystals are a no-brainer to get up and running. Now, as time goes along, and if you start getting a surplus of, say you're in a situation where you have multiple plots of land, you've brought up some of them, and then you're slowly bringing the other ones online, it may get to a situation where you might think, well, I've got enough grain buildup that I'll just have workers start clearing the land, the new lands, instead of buying time crystals, because it may save you money. It'll just take a little bit of time. That's one of the variables going on there. So Section 8, understand harvest, grain, taxes, and storage. Like I just said and reiterated, you earn about 90% of what you make. The other 10% is going to taxes, and then the castles and keeps are, from their play side, are trying to capture as much of that tax as possible. And that's the way they're making money off of castles and keeps. So I don't think that I need to go ahead and go over the rest of this. Once again, I'll go put the link in the title or in the show notes. As you can tell, I'm pretty tired this afternoon. So the last thing that I want to go over is something new in Splinterforge. The announcement, you'll see that they have been testing this in the last month or so, and Gathering the Magic has a good video. In fact, I'll put the link in the show notes on. He was on the test server and he was going through this. When it goes live, I'll go ahead and play through it, and I'll do a little video on it and tell you my thoughts. I think anything new, any new gameplay is going to be good, right? Something new to the game. But this is called the Electrum Mine Run, and it works on a different game perspective than the standard game, which is, you have a certain amount of points, mana points, to spend on your creatures, and you build up your armor, and you try to wear down this large boss mob. Okay, so this goes from the aspect of it's you against the mine. Okay, and you can pick out multiple cards, and you work your way through it and try to get through it as far as possible until you basically run out of creatures. So like I said, Gathering did a good video, so I'll post a link. I don't think there's a reason for me to go through it, or go through it in detail again, but after it goes live tomorrow, I'll definitely be checking it out and giving you my opinions, and possibly post a little replay of me going through it. But also something, and that's called the Electrum Mine Run, and also something that is changing is the Forge distribution modifier. Okay, it will now, going forward, be based on the actual price on the market. So I don't know how that's going to affect, whether we're going to get more or less. Theoretically, I would think you would get more since the price has been way down, but I'm not the best one to talk that numbers with like that, but we'll see how it works out, and I'll report on that. Also, another big change is, if you've been playing, you know that one person always gets the killing blow on the boss mob, and then they get a nice bonus. They get a nice bonus in Forge, and they get a nice bonus in chests. They get 1, 2, 3, 4 chests, depending upon what league you're playing in, right? Well, now the killing blow will be replaced by 3 individual rewards. Last Rush, which is the person that has done the most damage done in the final 100 battles recording. So I can automatically see right up front that I'll see people saving up their points to go ahead and do a lot of battles in the last 100 battles. I could see that. But those last 100 battles are kind of hard to time, because some of the boss mobs go really quick and some take a little while. So that would be hard to time. The second one is take a stab at it. A random fighter with at least 10 battles. So just because you do 10 battles on a boss mob, you're going to have a chance at getting a bonus. And no punches pulled. Highest average damage done per fight with at least 10 battles. So you're going to have the highest, by average, the highest damaging person with at least 10 battles in on that boss mob. So, and that's that's another thing. If you wait too late trying to get those last 100, if you don't get your 10 in, then you don't have the chance of getting either of those other two, right? The other two, take a stab at it, no punches pulled, both require at least 10 battles. Okay, so, and each of these will have a crate reward equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, depending upon what level you're playing at, right? And last, he says that Force Field has been modified to only reduce magic and ranged attacks with +5 damage. Melee attacks will be unaffected. Okay, these were the things that I thought were worth mentioning today. Once again, I hope that you'll join me come Saturday for my 25th live stream, which I appreciate. It's slowly been getting bigger and bigger, and more people have been showing up. I like all the conversations we have. They usually turn out to be really great, mostly around Splinterlands and some of the other high blockchain games, but sometimes other things, other new games like Diablo 4 and stuff like that sneak in the mix as well. So this has been Bronze Dragon saying I appreciate your time, and I hope everyone on your side is happy and healthy, and I will see you on the flip side.